Vanessa, the Crafty Gemini, and in this video tutorial, I'm sharing with you the techniques I use to cut my fabric yardage down into patchwork pieces, and I'll be sharing with you tips and tricks both for right-handed and left-handed quilters. Now, to make a quilt, we all know we have to cut our fabric into smaller pieces to then piece them back together in whatever the quilt design is we're working on. So this is a problem that a lot of quilters have, especially beginners, to wrap their head around how to manipulate and orient quilting rulers, how to line everything up so you can make the proper cuts using a rotary cutter and rotary cutting mat. The technique I most often use is what I call my two-ruler trick. It uses two rulers and the rotary cutter to make some really accurate cuts of your fabric. And I'll be teaching you how to do it both for right-handed quilters and left-handed quilters. So hopefully you get some really good tips and tricks from watching this video that can help you make more accurate cuts in your quilt projects. Now, if you like this kind of information and you want to learn more about quilting, I encourage you to use the link I've included for you in the description box below to learn more about my 2019 online quilt club. The sale price is running all the way up until tonight at midnight. It's May 24th, 2019 at 11:59 p.m. The sale price ends. If you're watching this video after that date and time, you can still join. It will just be at a slightly higher rate. But if you like this information and you want to follow through on several different quilt projects, our mystery blocks of the week, live chats, and a private Facebook group where we can get together as quilt club members and chat about our projects, definitely use the link I've included for you below so you can sign up and save some money to join my online quilt club community. All right, we have a little more than half a yard of fabric here, and this is just as it would come off of the bolt when you buy it in the fabric store or online. So the width is about 40 to 45 inches in width from selvage, which is that edge and this edge. All right, that's the width of the fabric in this direction. And then this way is like 19 or 20 inches, a little more than half a yard. That's what you ask for in the store. So if you go buy quilting cottons by the yard, you ask for half a yard or 1 yard. They measure along the lengthwise grain and then cut it, and then the width is all the same along the whole fabric bolt, okay? So this is how you would get it folded up. Now I have starched and pressed this, and now we're gonna go into cutting out patchwork pieces. So I just wrote some sample measurements here. Let's say I'm working on a project that calls for 4 blocks that measure 5 inches by 5 inches square, and then I have 4 more than I would need that measure 3.5 inches by 5 inches. So I'm gonna show you how I would cut these pieces out from my yardage. I like to work with a long strip ruler. This one happens to measure 6 inches by 24 inches. And then I have a smaller one here that's 6.5 inches square. So this is how I like to cut my fabrics using what I call my two-ruler trick. And it's for using 2 rulers. One I use to measure, and then the other I bump it up so it spans the full width of the fabric and I can cut the whole strip that I need using this one. And I'll show you and share with you some tips for both if you're right hand dominant or left hand dominant, how you would arrange the rulers and the rotary cutter for cutting accurately. All right, so I can see on the sides here, the fabric is not perfectly straight. So we need to start off with a nice clean straight edge. And for that, I use the fold of the fabric down here since it's doubled up. When I let the fabric fall flat, I know that it's gonna be nice and on grain here along the fold line. So I will use the fold line as a straight edge to measure from, because all the other sides here are not straight. This isn't straight and this isn't straight. So if I'm gonna start here, I need some type of a straight edge that I can place my ruler on. All right, so the long strip ruler will be to my left, and this one is going to be to my right. But first, let's use this one to trim up this edge. Now for cleaning off or trimming up that edge to make it nice and straight, I like to only scoot the ruler over the smallest amount possible in order to get a clean cut. So I have a lot of beginners who will like, oh, I need to clean off this edge, and they put the ruler here and then they cut. Yes, you are achieving the clean cut edge, but you're also wasting almost 2 inches of fabric. You don't want to do that, because the worst thing is as you're cutting your strips to then subcut them down into patchwork pieces, if you get to the end and you see that you're an inch short, you won't be able to use it, and then you will feel terrible because you're like, if I would have left the extra here, I would have had enough. So always be efficient with your cuts and cut only the minimum possible so that you don't end up having that issue later on. So what I do now is I line up any line, any of the straight lines on my ruler with the fold down here, and scoot this all the way over to just get a little teensy bit that I can clean off. Then I walk my fingers as I go because this is quite a long length to span. I always pull away the excess first to make sure I've cut through everything. Then I move my ruler and I'm gonna flip it and make sure that I don't have like the underlayer being a little shorter. So that looks good. It's a nice, clean, straight edge. Now I cut with 2 rulers because at this point my fabric is stable, it's flat, and I don't have to be flipping it over to orient this cut edge on that side so it's easier to cut because I'm right-handed, okay? So this is how I do it. I leave the fabric as it is. We trimmed away a little. Now I scoot it over and now I start to measure my pieces. So if I'm gonna cut out the 5" by 5" square pieces, I orient my ruler so that what I call the 0 corner is on my bottom left because I'm right-handed. I'll show you in a minute how to orient it if you're left-handed, but if you're right-handed, you want that 0 corner here. And the 0 corner is this one here. On any of these square or rectangular quilting rulers, you'll see that there's only one of the 4 corners that has a 1 and a 1 because the measurement increases start from this corner. So this is my 0 point, and then it counts up to 6½ inches, which is a dimension this way. Same thing here, 0 and counts up to 6½ inch this way. You notice every other corner has different numbers because it's either at the end of one of the increment of the ruler with the inches, okay, for the measurement. So find the 0 point down here where the 1 and 1 corner is, and that's the corner I want on my bottom left as I place it on my fabric to cut next. So if we're cutting a strip at 5 inches by the width of the fabric, I place that 0 corners on the bottom left, and I look for the number 5 where my 5" measurement is, and I place it on the freshly cut edge that I have here. Then I hold that steady in place so it doesn't move on me. I'm gonna bump up my second ruler. Now the second ruler is not for measuring. I'm not using the numbers on it. I'm only using it as a straight edge. So when I bump this ruler up to here, they meet at the exact point where I need to cut, right? So I'll ask myself, is the chunk that I need to keep underneath my ruler, and it goes from here to here, that's 5 inches. I wanna cut that full 5" strip, and this is correct. But obviously this ruler is not gonna reach for me to cut straight all the way here. And I'm right-handed. So I line this ruler up here, and this is just a personal choice that I make. I like to slide my rulers all the way up when I'm cutting longer strips to make sure that I'm maintaining that 5" measurement the entire way up, and you don't move the fabric like this, okay? So line it up at 5 inches, and I see that I'm off down here. So I always check my measurements like this. So now we're running 5 inches the full way, and now I get rid of this little ruler, and I know that the piece I'm about to cut is exactly what I want to keep. So I start here. Notice how I use this second ruler just to give me the straight edge to cut against. And that's one 5" strip, all right? Now let's go ahead and cut out the next one. I need rectangles that measure 3½ inches by 5 inches. So what does that tell me? I can cut out another 5" strip and subcut it down to the 3½ measurement. So let's do it again. I bump this up to 5. I slide mine up. Some people like those grippy rulers. I don't, because I like to slide and check my measurement the full length. All right, so now I have 2 strips that I have cut from Yardage. One will be subcut into squares and the other one into rectangles. So let's set one aside. Now this one, we cut this way already, all right? So now I'm gonna turn it on its side because I need to cut out individual squares from the strip in this direction. So first thing I gotta do is get rid of the selvage because I don't want that to be accounted for in my project. So now, because I know that this cut edge is straight, I can use that to line it up against one of the straight lines of my ruler. Again, only covering what I need to get rid of the selvage. No more fabric do I want to waste. Trim your selvage. I always flip it over, make sure I didn't leave a little selvage on that bottom. All right, and now that looks good. Now we're going to subcut these down into 5" squares. So it's doubled up. So you can cut through 2 layers. Again, 2 options. Because this is a smaller piece that's easier to manage, you can pick up the strip and flip it over if you're right-handed and start cutting from this way. You always put the measurement size that you want on the fresh cut edge. So I would put the 5" line of my ruler there, and then I can just cut here. And I would be cutting doubled up layers of 5" squares. However, I mentioned earlier, I don't like to move my fabric. So if I have it cut here, I rather leave it as it is to minimize distortion and throwing things off. So if I've just cut here, I'm gonna use the long strip ruler, only as a strip ruler, like a straight edge guide to cut from. And then I'm going to use the little one to measure my 5 inches. So again, my 0 corner is on the bottom left. I'm coming up to the 5-inch mark and I place that on my cut edge. Then I use this one bumped up. Okay? Ask yourself, is what you're trying to keep what is underneath the ruler? And in my case, it is. I can see 5 inches square. Now I can remove this one, and I know that where those two rulers meet is exactly the edge of 5 inches. So you can see I have 1 and 2 perfectly cut 5-inch square pieces. So you would just continue to do this for however many squares your pattern calls for. So if you need 12 or 20, you can calculate. If I'm doing the math and I'm designing something myself, I will calculate and see. Off of one strip, I can see I can get 2, 4, 6, and 8. I can see because I have more than 5 inches left here from one strip. So you would just calculate how many strips you need to cut to get the total number of squares that you need. All right, so here I have more than what I need, but I'll just show you. I just continue to do that. And so this is the waste that you have left from one strip that was cut at 5 inches. And we have all these squares, all right? Now let's see about cutting these guys down into the rectangles that we need. Again, I've cut the 5-inch strip. I want to get rid of the selvage first. And this one, I'm going to show you how you would orient it if you're left-handed. All right, so now these rectangles need to be cut 3.5 inches by 5. So we know that it already measures from here to here 5. So I know I need to subcut this down into 3.5-inch increments. So if I'm leaving this here, you probably, if you're left-handed, you wouldn't have cut it like this. You probably would have cut it this way, because you would have gone like this to trim away the selvage, hold it with your right hand, and trim, right? So you say you trim the selvage edge that way if you're left-handed. Then you would measure 3.5 inches over. So we have the ruler placed at the 3.5-inch increment. I need to cut here. If I'm left-handed, it's not going to be comfortable or safe for you to hold with your right hand and cross over like this so you can cut with your left hand. That is where my 2 ruler trick comes in handy. And I use it for the same reason, because I'm right-handed and I don't want to have to cut like this either, okay? So remember, 2 options. If you're left-handed and you want to cut here, you can flip the whole strip over so that that fresh cut edge is on your right side here. And then you can place the 3.5-inch mark on the edge there. Then you would hold with your right and cut with your left, okay? So you can do that. But if you're working with a bigger piece or kind of fabric that's moving all over the place, remember that I like to keep the fabric as stationary as possible. I like to manipulate it and deal with it as little as I have to prevent any type of distortion or any offcut. So for accuracy, I prefer to use the 2 rulers. So again, I'm doing it as a left-handed person. My 0 corner is going to be where I'm going to cut, whether or not you're left or right-handed. So it's here. So I can place the 3.5-inch mark on the edge, and I ask myself the question, is the piece I'm trying to keep underneath my ruler? And I see 3.5 by 5, it is. So as a lefty, you would hold here and cut here. This is not safe or comfortable to do. So you use the second ruler to hold that space of where you want to cut. I bump the second ruler up to it. I hold with my right because I'm pretending I'm left-handed. You would remove this here, and then you see that I'm in the right position to cut my patchwork pieces as a left-handed person. And there you have your 2 pieces. If you need 2 more, remember that these are doubled up. So this is 2 of the rectangles I need. If I need 4, I'm going to repeat the process again. 3.5-inch mark on that cut edge. Bump up my second ruler so I can hold it with my right hand. And then again, left-handed, cut my patchwork pieces in a comfortable and safe position. All right, so that is how I use 2 rulers to cut my patchwork pieces from Yardage. And there you have it. Those are my tips and tricks for some accurate fabric cutting for both right-handed and left-handed quilters. The next time you have to cut down some yardage into smaller patchwork pieces, go ahead and try out these techniques and let me know in the comments below what you enjoyed from watching this video and if these tips and tricks have helped you get more accurate patchwork cuts. Now remember, if you want to get in on my online quilt club and join an online community of quilters, no matter if you're a newbie or you're a more advanced quilter, I'm sure you'll still get some great value from my online club. The link to sign up for the early bird sale price that ends tonight, May 24th at 11:59 p.m. is included for you in the description box below. Check it out, give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to click that subscribe button so you don't miss out on my future videos. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.